Hello, everyone. This is Vladimír Karen from Albertina ICOME Praha. Let's start with our Cassyni webinar today. I'll start with a short introduction of our company, and then we move over to our colleagues at Cassyni. So, our company has been 35 years in business since 1991, when we started in the Czech Republic and shortly followed by the Slovak market. We are a supplier of electronic resources from global publishers. Some examples you can see on the screen. And in the past couple of years, we started collaborating with the national consortia in the Czech Republic and in Slovakia. Most academic institutions will have access to several electronic resources from our offering already. And because the electronic world is evolving quickly, we started offering also some electronic tools, most of them AI-based, such as Cite, Writeful, SciFlow, and today starting with Cassyni. These are some email addresses and names for you if you wanted to contact us afterwards. And now I'll stop sharing and I'll hand over to Andrew and Ben from Cassyni. Thank you.
Well, hello everybody, and thanks for joining today. Just to say, Ben and I are in the same room on a shared speaker. So if you hear Ben talking and you see me, that'll be why. What we're going to do today is I'm going to run you through some slides, an introduction to Cassyni, and what we do for in general, and then what we do for institutions. And then I'll hand over to Ben for a bit of a demo so you can see the live platform in action, and hopefully we'll have some time at the end for the fun part, the Q&A. So I'm going to jump in and share my screen. Jump into slideshow. That all looks good. Okay, so a little bit about Cassyni and us, actually. Ben and I are both researchers originally, both physicists, and I guess we have a passion for building things to help make research better in various ways. With Cassyni, I think what we've understood and what we think is important is this culture of presenting your research, giving talks about your research, whether it's at a conference, a symposium, a seminar series, or some other format as well. I think kind of what we've identified with Cassyni is that there isn't much of an ecosystem to support these sorts of things, even though millions of these talks are happening every year. And what we're trying to build up is the technology and the capability for researchers around the world to benefit from these and to turn these talks into a resource that can be used by everybody. So just to give you a snapshot of the platform, I took a screenshot a few minutes ago of some talks that are happening on Cassyni live today. So this was maybe about an hour ago, but there were, live talks in a couple of different rooms, a few things happening on throughout the day. And as you can see from kind of speakers, researchers from around the world. But Cassyni is not just about live talks. That's actually a relatively it's just one of several things we do. A key part of what we do is beyond holding live talks is allowing you to publish talks wherever they were hosted. And we've built some amazing technology that I think Ben will demo to you in a few minutes. But in short, Cassini is designed by researchers for researchers. So we focused very heavily on allowing the collection of rich scholarly metadata. So on the right, you're seeing a screenshot of a talk on Cassini. And it's probably a little bit small for you, but on the bottom kind of half of the page, you can see you've got the sorts of things you'd typically expect for a scholarly talk. So there's an abstract, a speaker with their affiliation. And in fact, if you look down the bottom, you can see the speakers actually loaded up the grants that they've that contributed to the work that they're speaking about. And all of this is structured metadata. So it can be deposited in services like Crossref, which I'll talk about in a minute, and elsewhere and used in various ways. So in some senses, you could think of us as being similar to platforms like YouTube, but actually we're extremely different and focus very, very heavily on the scholarly ecosystem. That feeds into the player, the advanced video player that Ben will demo as well, which has a range of features focused on what researchers need, including the ability to dive inside the talk and identify references that the speaker is talking about to the scholarly literature and linking those out to the article and these sorts of things. So just to give you an example, we can extract all of the slides from talks that are added to Cassini. We can make those linkable, so you can actually link to particular points in a talk about a particular result that you're interested in. We create closed captions from transcripts that are refined on the scholarly language or of the particular field that the talk is about. And then we can translate this into other languages as well. So there's a whole ecosystem of things we're doing here. Beyond that, we have done a lot of work to integrate what's on Cassini into the broader scholarly ecosystem. So I mentioned Crossref before. Talks in Cassini are eligible for a DOI, which we mint through Crossref, kind of making them citable and making the metadata stored in the talk available for wider use. And then we've partnered up with a wide range of providers in the scholarly ecosystem to make Cassini talks more discoverable and accessible. So this ranges from databases like Dimensions through products like EndNote, and then discovery tools like Ex Libris and other things as well. To give you a couple of examples of really pretty cool use cases. If you think of EndNote, we have an exclusive partnership with them where if you're looking at your reference list in EndNote and that reference is mentioned by any of the talks on Cassini, we can actually show beside the reference in EndNote that, hey, if you're interested in this paper, you should probably go and look at minute 23 of this talk because the speaker is discussing the paper there. So it's a huge unlock in terms of your ability to learn the nuances behind the research. And indeed, we can embed talks that are coming up in the future. So you might actually be looking at a reference as part of your literature review. You might see that there's a talk and you can actually RSVP to join that talk from directly within EndNote. Dimensions is another great example where we partner with them so that talks and the reference information associated with those talks in Cassini are added to Dimensions. And so actually talks can contribute to the citations that an article receives in Dimensions and vice versa. So it's all kind of connected into the network there. And then finally, embed. So the advanced Cassini player that I mentioned earlier, we've done a lot of work to make it so that when a talk is published on Cassini, you can add this to your personal website, onto a departmental web page, even embed it in a press release and these sorts of things. So really making it something that can be used broadly. Cassyni is a few years old now, and so I think, work with a lot of different customers now. So I'm showing here on the left a number or some of the scholarly publishers that we work with who are running talks associated with their research through Cassyni. And this ranges from large publishers like Springer Nature through to societies like Royal Society and so on. And then on the institution side, we work with many institutions now and offer a range of things that their institutions researchers and indeed institutions themselves can use. And that's actually going to be the bulk of what I talk about today. Just because of the audience today, I'm popping up some local examples of Czech and Slovak speakers who've presented on Cassyni recently. So I won't, I think, go into too much detail of each of these talks, because I think Ben will show some of these in a little bit. But the examples are here and completely discoverable. So it may be that your institution it already has talks on Cassyni. So here are some of the logos of institutions where we could find researchers who've been giving talks on Cassyni already. Okay, so that's the introduction. That's the broad picture of Cassyni. I'm going to zoom in now onto what we do for institutions. I'm kind of starting here with a quote from a partner of ours, a customer, Cassidy Sugimoto, who was at Georgia Tech. I think this kind of quote encapsulates a lot of what we do, which is the important ideas that are shared in our talks can now become part of the lasting, accessible scholarly record. So there's two key things that we do in an institutional context. One, we make it really easy to organize, run, and publish talks. So that might be seminars that departments or research groups are running within your institution, or day or multi-day symposia and indeed conferences. And there are lots and lots of examples of these sorts of things you can find on Cassyni. And then a slightly newer offering for us, but something we're very excited about because it, I think, can be spun up very easily out of the library or the research office or these sorts of things, but is the Research Talks Showcase, which allows an institution or indeed a department to discover talks given by their researchers, no matter where in the world they're held, and create a permanent, accessible record of the form Cassidy was talking about. So I'm going to give you some examples of the former, the publishing side of things, and then we're going to do a bit of a deep dive into the showcase. And we're going to do these examples in the form of some case studies. So I'm showing here a case study out of a university in New Zealand, Victoria University, where there's a research group doing some quite interesting work on like a novel semiconductor or group of semiconductors called the rare earth nitrides. And they had a kind of a problem where they were doing some world-leading research, but really needed people around the world to find out what they're doing and kind of build an ecosystem or community around that research to kind of connect on the global stage. And so by running a seminar series on Cassyni through their university, they've really been able to grow the series into a key hub for researchers working on this topic globally. 2/3 of all the researchers that attend and participate in this series are from institutions around overseas, international institutions around the world. And it's really kind of helped this group to sit at the nexus of the topic. And if you dive into the case study, it's been really fascinating to see. It's actually unlocked a number, like multiple collaborations where people have discovered the research through the seminar series and then become collaborators and worked on to push the field forward in various ways. And obviously this has led to successful funding and these sorts of things because you can show the global impact of what you're doing. Another example is out of the NCI over in the US, the National Institutes of Health. They run a regular set of seminars covering results from their scholars. And it's been really quite amazing to see the community of kind of researchers working in that area that have come together, and the research culture that has formed around sharing of ideas and knowledge, and getting to know other people in the room, and these sorts of things. So on the right here, you can see a screenshot of this the seminar series, this community on Cassyni. And I think actually, yeah, if I look down there, you can see in the bottom, there's a talk coming up tomorrow that people can RSVP to and join. So it's really cool to see these things come online. And I'll give you one more study, an example out of Imperial College here in London. So it's an example of a department that has a site license. And the screenshot on the right is a little bit kind of grainy because there's a lot going on. But basically, any faculty member in the department can spin up a seminar series. These might be the official departmental seminar series, of which there are a number, or it might be a symposium that they're running and bringing in people for. Anybody can spin these up and run them using Cassyni software, and obviously publish them with Cassyni. And it makes it a fantastic resource for faculty, for students, and for the broader community as a whole to connect on a wide range of topics. And I'll give you an interesting anecdote that came out of this from someone who ran one of these series, which is, they've been running it for a couple of years now. And they mentioned that now anytime a new student or postdoc joins their group, the first thing they do, if they're not already a part of the group, of the series, which in many cases they are, they'll get them to go and watch the talks in that series. And by the time someone's worked through the talks, they'd be considered to be very up with the play of what's going on in the field. So it's an amazing store of institutional knowledge, and one that's really suited for students and early career researchers who have come up in the world of YouTube, TikTok, so on and so forth. So kind of video native researchers. Okay, so that's the organizing, run, publishing side of Cassyni. We'll zoom in on the showcase now, the research talks showcase. So the best way to think about this is, more than 1 million research talks are presented every year. It doesn't matter how you work it out, you'll get to that number. So it's a similar scale of output to the number of papers that are published every year. They should be an amazingly rich and open source of knowledge, and also an important measure of an institution's impact and reach. But before Cassyni, there's no record of these things. So a large part of the world's research is lost. And so we've kind of set out to fix this. The idea of making talks that faculty at an institution that they're giving, turning them into something that is visible, discoverable, and reusable at institutional scale. So what we can do is we can capture talks that are presented anywhere in the world, not just talks that are held on campus, but talks that might be given at an international conference, symposium elsewhere, seminar elsewhere, these sorts of things. Turns those ephemeral talks into a durable output with the DOIs I mentioned and everything in the platform that we went through before. And obviously this can support in assessment, recruitment. I mentioned some of the benefits before in the context of imperial error, the rare earth nitride series, these sorts of things, and collaboration. And of course, talks come in several different forms, whether it's a seminar series, a symposium, a conference panel, some cases even performances on the arts and humanities side. So how does this work? Like the nuts and bolts, what does Cassyni do in this particular case? All we can do is we can receive a list of faculty members. Then we have a service called Cassyni Scout, which will go out and scour the web for publicly available talks. There are various kind of, let's call them editorial policies we'll apply to what we select to include. will then import the talk, the videos, recordings of the talks, and automatically populate the structured metadata based on the technology that we have that can literally watch through a talk and extract information. So this includes speakers, co-speakers, the conference or the seminar series where it was presented, these sorts of things. And then we have an interface within the Cassyni platform that allows you the faculty to claim these talks and verify them, which then unlocks the DOI and the indexing. And indeed, through that flow, researchers can start to, or faculty members can start to bring in talks that they're proactively bring in talks that they're giving going forward into Cassyni as well. So what does this unlock aside from a lot of the things I've already mentioned? You can of course start to see where faculty is speaking, who they're collaborating with. On the right actually is a chart of one of our customers, and very quickly on a world map you can start to see a couple of things where faculty are presenting around the world, but also when combined with the publishing side of what we do with Cassyni, you can also start to see speakers who are coming in and presenting on campus for the institution as well. So this kind of starts to give you a picture of researcher influence, importantly, productivity, connections that are not necessarily available in traditional publication-based bibliometrics. So you can start to imagine identifying emerging topics that are going on, collaborations that are beginning to happen well before a paper is published. And of course, I actually forgot to mention earlier, one of the really interesting things that we've started to see as we've built out the Cassyni platform is because people are joining, when they join a talk, they're kind of in a room with people and they want everybody to know who they are so they can build collaborations and connections. We see a lot of the affiliations of people who are participating in this talk. And so what we can see in many, many cases is when these communities grow, it's not just practicing researchers within departments or faculty members. It is, as I mentioned, students, but importantly, you also see a lot of cases of corporations. So researchers who are working in corporations joining these research talks and participating. And so you start to kind of get a sense of the wider impact that the research is happening in a completely new and interesting way that you can measure things. The other thing I wanted to mention is this is a great way to build institutional knowledge. So I mentioned the structured metadata, the way Cassyni deposits DOIs, and our integrations. There are ample opportunities to connect Cassyni talks into your institutional repository, your research information system, whether that's Pure or Elements, etc. And I'm showing a couple of screenshots here of institutions where this is happening already. So I mentioned Cassyni earlier. I'll show you here a case study of how we built up a showcase for the School of Public Policy at Georgia Tech. They kind of wanted an institutional or a departmental-wide view of what its faculty are presenting, where, and to who. And so we ran Cassyni Scout. We enabled the Cassyni Archivist for Georgia Tech and began to collect this information. In this case, the focus was on the 70 faculty members within the School of Public Policy and collecting the talks for them in a way that didn't require any additional work and gave them a nice benefit as well. And so this is one of our kind of earlier cases, but from the concept to the result, we were able to do everything in just a couple of weeks across that faculty. This has become kind of something we understand really well. We found pretty easily something like, well, lots of talks, but once we refined with our kind of policies down, something like 2 talks per faculty member. And we're able to create a data set of faculty activity. So they could then measure their global reach, the thought leadership, and begin to use these things in impact reporting, narrative reports, these sorts of these things. And as I said, we have a service where as you go out and give talks going forward, we have a tool that you can invite to come along to those talks, the Cassyni archivist, that will actually proactively keep a record for you. So you don't even have to do anything going forward either. A couple of quotes again from Cassyni. You know, the showcase is an incredible indicator of thought leadership. It shows where we're sharing our message and what venues and with whom we're on the stage with, and pointing out that it's been a great recruiting mechanism. So for prospective students, you can see the faculty members, the way they talk, the passion they share for their research, etc. It's a really amazing resource. So that's kind of what the broad picture of Cassyni, and then zooming in on the research talks showcase. Just jotted down a couple of actions that anyone listening can take today. I mentioned we integrate with various discovery platforms, Ex Libris, etc. You can go away and actually just turn on Cassyni in your discovery system, making this a resource that's available to your kind of faculty members or anyone in your institution just out of the box. And so we have instructions and examples of how to do this. You can, of course, go to Cassyni, discover talks, learn about how your faculty are using Cassyni and how institutions around the world are using Cassyni. And of course, you can please do get in touch to learn more. Not actually sure I put my email here, but I'm Andrew at Cassyni.com, and Ben, who's going to give you a demo in a minute, is Ben at Cassyni.com. And then obviously our colleagues from Albertina, I'm sure will be happy to talk as well. So that's what I wanted to cover today. Thank you for listening. I think the plan here is we'll jump into a bit of a demo of the platform from Ben, but we can also, if there are any questions that have come up during the course of the presentation, we can cover those now or in due course. That's up to colleagues at Albertina. There's one. Okay, there's a question in the chat. Let me see if I can find that.
So I can read the question now. So the question is it possible to have audio-only recordings?
It's a great question. I would say that it's not like the common thing that we see for a research talk. But we have some kind of policies that would allow them in some cases. So for example, if it was a general podcast, not about your research, that probably wouldn't qualify. But if it was a discussion about your research in some sort of venue, then that would be considered. Although I'd say the vast majority of what is on Cassyni is video and discussions about research one way or another. Another question, how do we handle content in local languages? So good question. The Cassyni product itself, so the website that you go to is in English, but obviously the videos can be in any language. I would say that Cassyni works best in English, the captions, the subtitles, etc. Another thing that we do really well is we can then translate those captions and subtitles to other languages. We have ways to turn on different languages. But in principle, a talk given in another language should more or less work on Cassyni, where some things may not be as smooth. And then is it available in Summon?
Yeah, it is. So we have a integration into the CDI product within Clarinet. So anything that pulls its data from CDI should work And I can give a little demo of that kind of here just now. So maybe that's a natural segue for maybe me to kind of here jump into some moving pictures on screen. So yeah, thank you very much, Andrew, for kind of here like setting out the different use cases. I thought I could give a demo in 3 parts. We can start off by looking at some of the specific use cases, how they are manifested on the platform, what that looks like, some of the capabilities. We can then zoom in on some of the individual talks and look at how they are presented on the platform. And then we can talk a bit about the integrations, and that might be kind of like a natural jumping off point for integrations into library discovery tools. So I'm just going to get permission to share my screen. Thank you. Yeah, so here's our Cassyni.com landing page. You can come here and you can search for a talk. All the talks are open access. They're free to watch. So kind of you can come here, your kind of affiliation researchers can come here and they can discover content from around the world. And any content that you kind of deposit within Cassyni, that you publish with Cassyni, would similarly be discoverable and get that boost in visibility. So let's jump into some of these specific examples that Andrew mentioned. Here's what the page looks like for the NCI's Rising Scholar series that features kind of talks presented by kind of oncology and cancer research kind of PIs at the National Cancer Institute. The page itself has been kind of branded according to the preferences of that organization. So if this was for your organization, it would, the visual identity, the logos, the text could all be kind of customized. And it acts as a kind of repository for upcoming talks and as a library for kind of past talks as well. So if we were interested in any one of these topics, we could come here, or we could RSVP, and we have all the kind of event management tools functionality in there as well to manage kind of registrations, to make it easy to kind of promote these types of talks as well. Scrolling down the page, you'll see we've got a library here of kind of the past seminars that anyone can come back to and can watch, which acts as sort of like video institutional memory of your organization. To give you a sense of kind of another one of these types of pages, I thought I'd give you an example of a showcase page. Again, taking the example of the Georgia Institute of Technology's kind of School of Public Policy. We went out there, we did a search of all the talks that the affiliated faculty had presented, and these came from, some of them were on campus, some of them were at other institutions, some of them were at conferences, various other kind of events. We brought those all into kind of a central place, and then we have a workflow whereby the individual academics can go through the records that we found and can say, yep, this was me, this is a talk I gave, and I'd like to add this to the showcase page. And what we do along the way is that we clean up all the metadata. We use AI to make sure that kind of the titles, the abstracts, references, all that stuff is correctly normalized and optimized for visibility and discovery. And what you can see here is the showcase of individual talks. We can browse through them, or we can use an AI feature to actually identify specific talks. So at the moment, I'm quite interested in internet policy, so I can actually search here talks about internet policy. And what happens behind the scenes is that Cassyni is looking at this index of talks. We're looking at the abstracts, we're looking at the slides, we're looking at the transcripts. And you can see here a selection of talks specifically on the topic of internet policy that we've been able to kind of put out there and highlight. And you can see that some of these might be given on campus, some of these might have been invited talks, there could have been invited talks given at conferences, other institutions, that sort of thing. And we've even pulled out the profiles of the individuals that were presented. So when it comes to showcasing your work on a global stage, to potential academic collaborators, industry partners, funders, students, this is kind of a really nice way of showing the work that happens at your institution. And you can think of it as a evolution of that traditional expert finders page, where you might see a list of, here's 10 publications I had recently. Instead, you can say, hey, here's my kind of like my kind of video kind of like collection of work that gives a good kind of flavor of what I've been working on. So maybe to switch to another couple of examples. This is one department. I thought I could talk to you about what it looks like to scale this up from one department to a whole campus. Here we've got, for example, Hong Kong Baptist University, and what we've done is replicated this for each one of their departments. So you can see here we've got the showcase for the Academy of Film, the Academy of Music, Academy of Visual Arts, all the different departments kind of here on campus. And the really exciting thing here is that there's many departments that may be underrepresented in kind of traditional bibliographic measures. Maybe they don't publish that much, or they publish more monographs. They're often out there giving lots of talks. And so it's often those institutions that might, not have as many kind of traditional publications that can particularly benefit from identifying the talks given by their researchers. And then maybe just one more example. Here we've got the Imperial College London Aeronautics Showcase. Andrew already mentioned how you can have a whole bunch of series here side by side. We've got events here about different research themes. We've got, for example, here, international collaborations like this one here. We've got institutes that might be talking about what the research being conducted. And then we've also got things like workshops or conferences or symposia that might be held on campus that could also be captured. And sometimes these will also be organized for Cassyni, but sometimes it's just recordings that are being imported into Cassyni and then get published afterwards. Maybe just to give you one more example. This is the Sci-Fi Turbo project. This is EU Horizon Europe funded project, which brings together work around turbo machinery across a whole bunch of different EU institutions. And what they've done is that's one of the things in the grant they have to do is they have to think about dissemination and amplifying the impact of the project. And they found that a seminar series is a really good way to do this. You've got the different institutions involved in the project, taking turns to talk about their work. They've actually they've given the platform to different industry partners to talk about what they do. And what they've ended up with is this really nice library of content that summarizes the research from all the way from the sort of fundamentals of theory through to the applications. And one of the things that we collected along the way are the individuals that have tuned in to watch these seminars. So you can see here this tab here that showcases the profiles of those people. Some of those people are, investigators in the project, like this individual at the DLR. Then you've got speakers who could be other academics involved in the project. There could be individuals from industry that are benefiting from the research. And all these profiles and all this data is accessible to the researcher. So when it comes to reporting on a grant and you want to show, hey, here's the impact we're having in the field, you could do things like say, hey, we've got over 300 individuals that have become part of the ecosystem that's involved around this project. This many are based here in the EU. These people are based outside. So many people based at research universities, so many people based in industry. And it just gives you a really convenient way to get evidence the impact of the project. And this is happening in a much more immediate way than traditional citation measures or those sorts of things. So that's a little survey of the different types of seminar series and research talk showcases that we've got on Cassyni. I thought now is maybe a good time to zoom in and to talk a bit about what an individual talk looks like when it's being published on Cassyni. So I've got a few examples ready for you. I thought I'd start with one here, which is published as part of a journal seminar series that's been organized, where in this case, the author, Petra Marinova, has been invited to present a presentation about their work. And you can see here that we've got the video for any individual to come back and watch. We've got the abstract here. We've got the association between the video and the underlying publication. So you can always go from the video back to the publication. And what we see is that this actually leads to increased downloads of those publications. So you can think of the video captures someone's attention, it generates interest, and then that funnels down into more downloads of the papers. And we've also been able to show that those increased downloads also turn into increased citations of the work that's being discussed. as part of the metadata that we collect, we'll have kind of information about the speaker. And one of the things that's very important is that each talk on Cassyni can be eligible for a DOI. So that makes the talk in itself a type of publication. Yeah, so you can think about a new type of research output, which you can now get recognition for, which can become discoverable, which can form part of someone's collective research output, or part of an institution's collective output as well. And then those DOIs are indexed in different discovery services. I've got a tab open here, as you can see. I'll show you another talk first, and then I'll show you what that looks like in a discovery service. So here's an example of another talk, again in the context of a journal series, and you can see here the speaker information. In this case, this time associated with the Czech Technical University in Prague, information about the talk, abstract, references, anything that's included. We've actually made sure that the Cassyni content is indexed in discovery services like Dimensions. So if you were doing a literature search on stratified flows and numerical simulations, you'd be able to find the traditional journal literature, but you'd also be able to find the Cassyni research talks. So imagine you see two results and they both look interesting, and one comes with a video and one comes without the video. Increasingly, the attention is going there where the video is. And you can see that we even embed the videos directly within some of these discovery tools in order to maximize visibility and make sure that your research is getting the best possible audience. Andrew alluded to the fact that we have some AI magic that we apply to the talks to make them more engaging and discoverable. I'll give you a few examples of the sorts of things that we do there. The first thing we do is we produce a high quality transcript of each one of the talks, and we extract all the slides. And that means we can get these nice AI outlines where you can see chapters, what was discussed. So it's a very convenient way of jumping into the most relevant part of the talk for your research. And we found that it makes interacting with video content a bit more like interacting with a journal PDF. You can jump to the most interesting part, you can, like turning a page, you can jump ahead to the next slide. And we found that this is really popular with researchers and leads to more engagement than could be achieved in other platforms. So I just jumped into the talk somewhere in the introduction. And as I'm looking at the slide, and I can play the video here, I can see that there's actually a reference contained on the screen. If you look at the bottom left-hand corner of the slide, there's a faint blue box. And that's Cassyni's AI picking up on the fact that there's a reference there. And that's being surfaced here. So it's a really nice way of connecting the video content along with the textual journal literature as well. Another thing we had some questions around multilingual support. You'll see here that we have captions, and by default, every bit of content gets English, but we also can turn on other languages as well. By default, we have Chinese and Spanish, but that can be configured also depending on your needs. And we also have an AI tool that allows you to interact using chat with the video. So if you have a specific question, I don't know if you ever had this, but you attend a talk and it's really interesting. The speaker says something in the middle, and you kind of wish you could just jump back to that specific moment and hear that bit of insight again. And rather than having to jump through the talk minute by minute to try and find it, we make it really easy to be able to ask the question and then to jump to exactly that part of the presentation just with a few clicks. And so all the AI answers are always grounded specifically in the seminar, or grounded in the talk, in the transcripts and the slides, and ensure that we're getting a high quality, high accuracy recall. I thought maybe there's one last thing that I wanted to show you, especially on the integration side. Andrew mentioned that one of the actions that we recommend those of you working in libraries take today is to make sure your discovery service is configured to return results from the Cassyni index. So we integrate into EBSCO Discovery System, and we also integrate into the Clarivate suite of tools. And so just as an example here, if the Imperial Library Search is powered by Ex Libris, if we were searching for a tool, a term like F.A.I.R, the popular series on Cassyni, you can see here that the seminar series is discoverable. And you can also see that the individual videos are discoverable right within the live research. And so this is a really nice way of making sure that your institution's talks are appearing in the live researchers at your other institutions. You allow them to find your content and kind of like make it easy to kind of collaborate with your researchers. You're giving them kind of like a showcase that spans across the different types of tools that they'll already be using. So maybe I'll pause there, but that gives you a bit of a flavor of the way that we can help showcase your work, help discover the talks that are happening at your institution and beyond, and also help you organize new talks as a way to increase the visibility of your institution's outputs, increase the downloads, increase citations, and present you in the best possible light.
That is awesome. Thank you, Ben. I noted that while you were talking, there was a question, which I'm going to hand to Igor, actually, which is about how does pricing for Cassyni work? So, Igor, over to you.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. First of all, thank you, Andrew and Ben, for a brilliant presentation. I think for the pricing, we'll look carefully at both the research output and the organization size to define a good win-win for us and Albertina, of course. We also take guidance from Albertina on the pricing in Czechia and Slovakia. And I'd like to also mention that we'd like to have a discovery meeting before sending a proposal. If anybody wants to know the pricing, we don't send like, $10 or $10,000. We'd rather want to understand what the use case will be, and then together with an institution arrive at a solution that will work, including a pilot arrangements or engagements as well. Back to you, Ben and Andrew. There are more questions.
Thanks, Igor. And I saw another question, which I'm going to give to you, Ben, which is a good one, which is the talks that you showed from Czech and Slovak speakers. How did they get into Cassyni?
Yes, so the specific examples I showed, these were journal series. So these were hosted by kind of international journals where Czech and Slovak authors would have published. So, for example, we work with Spring Nature, and one of the benefits of publishing in some of their journals is that you might be invited to present a seminar on the Cassyni platform. And so those specific examples would have happened through journals that are organizing seminar series for their titles, where individual authors can be invited to talk about their papers. So that's kind of one way that you already have some stuff on Cassyni. Similarly, we work with some conference organizers where kind of all the conference output will be published on Cassyni. So if there's a Czech or Slovak researcher that presented at that conference, their talks would also already be really on Cassyni. If we were going to work with institutions that wanted us to go out and to back populate kind of the content that's out there, we could then kind of crawl the open web and find those records of individual talks that have been given and make sure there was a complete record for that institution.
But and just to say, I mean, that's like the really interesting thing we hear time and again, which is when people discover through the Cassyni service all the talks and interesting research outputs that their researchers are giving out there. It's like a really eye-opening moment, and kind of hopefully you kind of had a sense of that from seeing something like this.
And I expect that at your institutions there already be many research talks that are happening. It could be happening within departments, there could be seminars happening, there could be symposia, there's probably a lot of stuff, a lot of activity that's really happening, but maybe isn't kind of optimized to get the maximum visibility, kind of the maximum kind of impact.
But follow-on question, publishing on Cassyni isn't limited to talks that were part of a scientific journal or conference. Again, I'll let you answer that, Ben.
Sure. So we have some talks that are specifically about a paper, and then we have some talks that are specifically part of a kind of conference program, and then we also have talks that might be given kind of like in some other settings. We do distinguish between kind of what's a research talk, like where does it make sense to give it a DOI, and then there's maybe other videos that might be outside the scope. But we have kind of like, as part of our ingestion process, a kind of a policy that we apply, where we'll basically kind of filter the videos we find and say, which are the ones that are recommended suitable for kind of being a research talk, and which are the ones that might still be interesting videos but probably aren't a good fit for Cassyni.
Right. And I'll just check if anybody, so obviously it's great having the questions in the chat. Just check if anybody wants to ask any questions as well.
Yeah, you can just unmute yourself and speak if that's your preferred way. By the way, thank you, Andrew and Ben. I think it was really great. My favorite actually is the AI outline. It's really something that I would like to have on any video.
What we find is
that's really neat.
you're just like, if someone sends you a link and it's like a 20-page manuscript, you may not have the energy to read it in that moment. And if someone
Of course,
like a 20-minute video, sometimes you've got time for it, but sometimes you just want to jump to that 2-minute little clip that is the specific thing you're looking for. And so having AI outline gives you that kind of like magic feeling of, you found exactly what I was looking for.
Exactly. Right. We still have a couple of minutes, but I don't see any other questions coming. Maybe one out of the top of my head. If we are talking about the recordings, are there any principles or guidelines as to the editing of those? Because of course, some of the speeches may be edited, some are just raw material.
Yeah, that's a good question. Couple of things I'd say. First of all, we have a tremendous amount of experience editing these talks, and so if there are cases where they do need to be edited, we can kind of in many cases take care of that. But generally speaking, I think part of the Cassyni ethos is to take what a researcher is saying about their research in their own words, in their own words, and make it available. And so, in some sense, the raw presentation is actually the perfect thing, especially once we can overlay the slides, the AI outline, these sorts of things. There is one big caveat, which is sometimes people will be presenting sensitive results, things that haven't been published yet, these sorts of things. And so we do have a facility to redact those from talks if necessary.
Thank you. So it doesn't seem there are any other questions coming. So I'd like to thank you once again, Andrew, Ben, Igor. And I would like to encourage everyone, if you are interested in Cassyni, please get in touch with us or with our colleagues at Cassyni, and we'll try to respond to your questions and hopefully work for some arrangement. Thank you, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
Bye.